I'm going to give us another minute or so just for people to arrive. So just be making yourselves comfy, maybe tuck into your brunch boxes. I don't know about where everyone is in the world today, but it is not raining. So that feels like a really good day here in Kent.
Not raining.
Sorry.
I'm in London, central London, and it's all right. It's just the usual grey sky, but not rainy.
I will take the grey sky though over the rain we've had recently. It's been weather for ducks, not for humans. It's been far too wet.
Yeah, actually, till Halloween was good. I was impressed by the weather, and then it's winter. It's okay. It's then November. Nothing we can control.
Definitely. Winter has definitely arrived. I also, my local supermarket last night popped in and there was a full-on Christmas tree outside. I was like, whoa, I was not ready for that. I wasn't.
I've gone Christmas mad already. I took all my Christmas box decorations down. I'm intending to go full on festive this weekend. I don't care.
Really? Wow. Wow. Well, there you go. Maybe we'll need a separate brunch and learn to talk Christmas decorations because that is, yeah, I don't know when the right time is actually. That's made me think maybe we need to get going.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So we're looking like we've got most people that we're expecting in here. So I'm going to start kicking off and there might still be some people filing in, but that's great. So good morning, everyone. I'm Becky. I'm founder and CEO here at Reflect Digital. And we're a digital marketing agency that are here to unleash your potential. We believe that every client we work with has got this amazing potential and we're there to help unleash it, help find how to best reach audiences. So we leverage human behavior insights and we use that to optimize customer experience and to level up those digital marketing campaigns, whatever channel it might be on. So hopefully everyone that requested a brunch box has received one. I know the Royal Mail isn't as reliable at the moment, but hopefully. So feel free to tuck in. If you've already eaten it, that's cool too. If you're saving it, don't save it for too long. Make sure you get to enjoy it because they're beautiful. We want today to be as interactive as possible, so feel happy to come off, have your camera on and to ask questions when we're doing Q&A. You can pop comments in the chat, that type of thing. So we're here today talking about the FinTech battle for customer loyalty. So we've got a few clients in this space and we always find this kind of switcher campaign a really interesting piece to look at, especially in a finance world. People feel quite tied into providers that they work with. Feels like a big change. Like we're talking more B2B today, but I suppose when I think about myself personally, the thought of changing bank scares me, and anything where you think, oh, if something went wrong, it could go really wrong, people worry about it. So sometimes it's better the devil you know. But actually switcher campaigns can be really, really impactful for the end user, because actually there might be a better solution out there for them. So we want them to feel confident to be able to make that change. But obviously it's brilliant for your businesses because there's all those, maybe you're a new solution to the market. You weren't there when they first set up. So looking at how we can play that game and grab attention in the space is really important. And that's what we've got Zoe, our strategy director, here to talk about today. So Zoe is all about client roadmaps, objectives, getting ROI for clients. I've never met a more organized person. Well, actually, I might fight you for that crown, actually, the two of you. But she knows how to plan and how to deliver. She's got over 15 years experience crafting client-centric performance strategies for brands from everyone from Adidas to Monster Energy, but also on the more B2B side as well, working with the likes of Opeo and the World Economic Forum. So she can do everything from CRM and data through to lead gen strategies and the performance marketing side. So she's going to do most of the talking today. Her voice is struggling. I'm gonna be honest for her here. She's a trooper being here today because she's not feeling at her best. So we'll all bear with her. If you need to go on mute for a minute, Zoe, you can take a breath. But yeah, there's a lot going around. But the good news is none of us can catch it. We're not in the same room. So I'm going to hand over to Zoe now. We're going to do questions at the end, but feel free to be popping them in the chats as we chat as we go, because we'd love to get your thoughts. And yeah, without further ado, the stage is yours.
Perfect, thank you. Well, like Becky said, I apologize if my voice goes a little bit weird, but like Becky said, we're going to be digging into the fintech space today, looking at how you can sort of win the loyalty game in today's very busy marketplace. Merchants, as we know, are increasingly looking to grow and create sort of ever more personalized experiences for their customers. What I'm looking at today is how a fintech partner might stand apart and secure that long-term loyalty from the customers. So we'll have a look at how customer experience can really make or break element. We'll have a look at the sort of behaviors that you need to be aware of if you're trying to drive a customer to switch, and hopefully give you some idea thought starters and showcase some other fintech brands that are doing really well in this space. So I think we're all aware of just how crowded the fintech space has become. We've got challenger and startup banks, seemingly new financial apps that are popping up every day. The marketplace currently for fintech is very, very noisy. And particularly in the UK, we're seeing people are actually switching less and less. So the good news is they're sticky once you get them. But the bad news, obviously, is you have to work really hard now for a small pool of users. And like Becky said, even in the B2C space, people are very nervous about switching, particularly in anything to do with anything they view as being complex or difficult decision-making. There's a nervousness and a sort of a hard work has to be done by a marketer to encourage someone to switch a product or a service provider, even if they're looking to switch their personal banks. And there's a lot that they could be considering to switch to. As we said, consumers are very sticky, but their choice landscape is ever growing. The fintech growth curve, as you can see there, is impressive to say the least. We've got startups, disruptor brands popping up all the time, and there's been massive investment in this sector. There was about $4.1 billion worth of investment that came into London alone in 2020. And we know that because of all this choice that's now available, today's consumer isn't just using one banking app. They may have a banking app, an app from their mortgage lender, another app that's helping them track and manage their budgets. Businesses can now choose from a myriad of point of sale systems, payment gateways, different customer financial data aggregators. There's huge amounts that's on the choice radar for people to be considering either in their personal B2C life or in the business landscape. And if we just dig a little bit more into what makes up that fintech space at the moment, in the UK, there's sort of 8 broad fintech categories, from banking, regtech, insurtech, lending, payments, wealth tech. There's a whole load of options and categories there. Lending has achieved pretty much double-digit growth for most of the past 20 years. It started with payday loans and consumer lending, and has then obviously moved into SME lending. And particularly, many lenders that were founded even back in the early 2010s, the likes of Funding Circle, Market Finance, they're still playing in the industry today. So there's still legacy brands that are up for the choosing. We've also seen industry regulations actually helping drive growth. So one of the things we saw was the PRA's process support for the new banking license applications. In 2010, it was the first entirely new banking license in over 100 years, and that was issued to Metro Bank. We also saw in 2014, the Prudential Regulatory Authority, they set up a startup unit, and that was actually helping aspiring banks navigate that process of gaining a license. And that really opened the door for innovative startup banks that we started seeing crop up sort of since the mid-2010s. We also saw legislation open up innovation in open banking. So that, again, helped enhance the offerings of challenger banks since 2016. And as a result of all of these, we've seen most of these sectors having massive growth. Wealth tech maintained close on 20% growth year on year for a decade. And most of the big surge in wealth tech recently has come because that category now includes the likes of cryptocurrency, a lot of the new trading and investment platforms, and it's actually currently the UK's largest fintech specialism. So there's a hell of a lot that's going on in that place, and there's not really any sign yet of certain areas becoming saturated. The only region that's sort of become slightly more slower in its growth rate is the invoice and cash flow management in recent years. It is still growing, but that's probably the one sector that's showing early indicators that it might be reaching a bit of a saturation threshold, I guess. And when it comes to the fintech companies, like I said, there's too many that I could throw 50 million logos onto this screen. The explosion of fintech startups isn't that surprising, I guess. We've had very tech-savvy millennials that are obviously aging now, myself included. So banking and financial options have evolved too. The once rare perks, I guess, like mobile banking is now completely standard. And that's really forced the brick and mortar institutions to become far more digitally tech-enabled. And banks aren't the only financial institutions, of course. Entire markets have had to go through digital innovation, from digital loans and mobile stock services all the way through to our e-commerce payment platforms and digital currency exchanges. There's lots of examples to reference, but a couple of examples might be Circle. They deal in digital currency. They've actually started with a wide selection of coins, so users can easily transfer money across countries and currencies, and they're helping users actively become more savvy investors, particularly in new currencies. Revenue Cat, they're a big one. Developers can leverage their technologies to design in-app purchases and subscription features. They also compile data on customer habits and churn rates, so businesses are using them to pinpoint issues and find ways to increase their conversions. And hopefully many of us might have heard of Remitly. They simplify the process of sending money overseas and across borders. They've got lots of different ways to do it. Remitly offer their low fees, their quality exchange rates, and a new innovation that they've done relatively recently is something called Passbook. It's a modern banking experience that they designed specifically for immigrants after having seen the immigration changes and waves across geopolitical boundaries in recent years. And it's hard to remember what life was like before mobile apps allowed us to pay our friends or our merchants with just a few taps. So if we just look at the payment processing sector, fintech payment processing companies have made it sort of easier than ever before to move money around, whether they're looking to facilitate person-to-person payments, or if they're trying to streamline small business transactions. The payment processing solutions market's worth currently, according to Forbes, is on track to reach 150 billion by 2030. And again, with a market that size, there's lots of players out there. So we're seeing lots of specialisms. There's a lot that are cropping up in the buy now, pay later integrations for e-commerce companies, gearing around trying to attract younger consumers. We've got a lot that are specializing in peer-to-peer payment platforms that sort of everyday people can use to split their checks and pay their monthly sort of rent bills, for example. But in any case, most of the goals of all of these are very much the same. It's allowing people to make payments as fast and as simply and as securely as they can. A couple of the big ones that we're all relatively familiar with would be BigCommerce. They obviously allow small business to build online marketplaces. It's a cloud-based design platform with templates, and they've got full WordPress integration, mobile optimization, digital wallets. So they're all around boosting shopping and payment experiences. Klarna is the Swedish fintech company. They are a big player in the buy now, pay later product for e-commerce, and they're allowing people to have flexible payment options. Obviously, you can pay in 4 installments. You can even arrange a financing plan if you need to, even on a single transaction. Braintree, they're a service of PayPal, an investment platform for enterprises, and obviously another payment gateway is Stripe, which looks at software services like subscription or on-demand marketplaces, as well as crowdfunding. So again, if you're trying to get people to switch, there's a lot that could be crowding into the consumer brain to work out what is the best partner for them to go with. So what does that all mean? Well, it means the fintech space is super fast growing. It's filling with disruptive brands that are offering a high level of choice to end consumers and between B2B service providers. All of that is making the B2B loyalty game between a fintech partner and a merchant or business owner that much more difficult. So how do we start trying to win and encourage brand and consumers to switch or consider moving from one partner or service provider to another? What actually matters most to them in trying to make that decision? So let's have a look at that. We are messy decision makers is probably one way of putting it. Humans aren't rational, unfortunately. Our decision-making process is not linear. Human decision-making journeys are made up of a multitude of triggers before purchase, and Google's got a term for it. They call it the messy middle. We look for information about products and brands. We weigh up all the options before we make a choice. So we're either looking and figuring out our various options, or we are comparing and trying to narrow ourselves down to a final decision. So there's 2 very different mindsets at play there in that messy middle. We're either in the mode of exploration, which is expansive in nature, or evaluation, which is a reductive activity. So whatever a person is doing across a huge array of online sources, whether it be Googling or looking at social media or looking at aggregators or review websites, we're either in one or other of those two mental modes. And as I've said, consumers are humans with very busy and full heads. So when they're trying to assess and make a switch consideration in finance, they might be worrying about recessions or pandemics or the cost of living or obviously the wars that are cropping up. There's also been an overall erosion in trust in many instances, and the new sort of digitally native and disruptive brands are showing them that they don't have to go with traditional big banks or long-time established fintech suppliers. So the fintech sector has had to really continuously innovate and evolve their offerings to make things like making and accepting payments, as I've said, as easy as possible, and leaning on innovation to try and woo their target audience. We've seen things like open banking, making it a lot easier for firms that aren't licensed lenders to develop financial services by linking directly to people's bank accounts. And we've seen investors really, looking at this use of technology, particularly in the payment sector, but it's a hot area in general. We're seeing a lot of startups hoping to disrupt the credit card game which are charging the merchants the biggest fees. So we've seen big companies like Visa, like MasterCard, even Apple are sort of really paying attention to this. Visa acquired Sweden's Tink for more than 2 billion. Apple snapped up Credit Kudos, which is a company that relies on consumers' banking information to underwrite loans. So we're seeing the big brands kind of looking at these small disruptor opportunities to drive their expansion into innovative offerings like their buy now or pay later loans. So innovation's constant in this space, and consumers are actively interested in how fintechs are continuing to answer the demand and make the financial aspect of their lives personalized and more seamless. So with consumers being these messy decision makers with busy heads, and with fintech startups really changing the innovation game, what matters most, aside from that continuous innovation, can really be boiled down to user experience. Humans are hardwired to follow the path of least resistance. We naturally pick the path of least resistance when it comes to making decisions. Anything that makes us work harder tends to be met with a rise in our dissatisfaction, really. And when it comes to banking, financial, or high-value decision-making, there's even more vital importance on that actual user having the most seamless and enjoyable customer experience possible. And we'll use a sort of commerce example in the next couple of slides to look at what it means in a payment solution, in a payment gateway type of execution. So user experience in this instance is really the pull or the push that can result in either winning a consumer or obviously seeing them, in this analogy, abandon their cart and run for the door. If we take a look at digital commerce and the role that fintech is playing in that payment gateway, we can see the rapid shift in digital adoption by consumers for payment merchants has been great for the digital payment fintech space at large. And whether the shift has been down just to the millennials and Gen Z generation or not, the success behind that digital adoption has really lied with the fact that the UX has had to include convenience and security. The payment gateway stage in a commerce journey really decides whether the customers complete that purchase or leave an abandoned cart, and more importantly, whether they're going to really risk transacting with a brand again in the future. But any stage along a customer journey that presents kind of friction can end up derailing a potential sale or closing a business deal. So frictionless is sort of what we're really trying to get as the main goal for CX, for making sure the user experience has no points of friction in it. And we know that customers are always attracted to sort of easy to navigate, rich, intuitive experiences. And that holds true, obviously, in B2C, but does just as well in B2B. And when it comes to the SME customer, ensuring they can offer their consumers the most seamless shopping experience is perhaps the only real factor that drives their loyalty. Because if they've got happy clients that are making their money, they're likely to stick and not be encouraged to switch. So how you can sort of respond to that as a fintech partner to really help lock in that customer does come to making sure your own product is providing the main CX touch points that this merchant is looking for. So we know that currently one of the biggest factors that drives switch consideration is if they can't get the most flexible online payment methods. So consumers want flexibility. Merchants are often looking to offer the max flex possible in their online payment methods. You'll see that customers and merchants at the moment are really preferring to have as many payment options as they can, from EMI schemes to buy now, pay later, besides offering then the added value kind of features like loyalty rewards or the ability to redeem and own points or turn on and off promotions. Customers are also demanding from their merchants a really simple yet secure checkout experience, irrespective of what the payment method choice was. So you'll see a lot of UX has happened where you can save cards for a faster checkout. You can have a single checkout page with an option to enter the OTP or PIN, smooth transition to payment approval, order confirmation. All of those touchstones are vitally important to ensure that seamless payment experience. So the bottom line really is that payment gateway in commerce needs to focus on both merchant and customer centricity and enhance that payment experience. And the relationship between buyers and merchants obviously then enhances manyfold, purely based off of the CX that's been delivered at that checkout stage. And ensuring a high success ratio is obviously critical. In the case of transaction timeouts or declines, you'll see a lot of CX where it offers the customer an alternative payment method. So they don't just, abandon the transaction because of having a fail. So ensuring success ratios, maximum uptime of software, offering a seamless way to handle transactions. These are all key factors that SMEs are considering when they're assessing their ideal fintech partner or solution in the commerce and retail space. And if any of those things are providing friction for them, that's a main trigger, which we'll talk about in a moment, that might drive them to a switch consideration. And having a marketplace for SME merchants, this is really the increased need that you've seen, particularly around small and medium merchants in taking their businesses online. You've seen banks and the sort of fintech merchant aggregators really having to support these merchants with a marketplace, so allowing them to, really assess them, make sure you're findable, that people can hunt down the various options you're providing, comparing and contrasting options before they make an important business decision. So upweighting, compare and contrast content is also something that if you put that out there into the marketplace, you're going to potentially encourage people to read that review, compare, contrast, get confident with their switch decision considerations. So all that just means, right, that you need to be innovative and offer the best, most prettiest CX and you'll win the game. Obviously, it's a bit of a trick question. You have to offer more to really be a leader now to the potential business consumer. It's not just about beautiful UX and it's not just about, making sure it's a frictionless CX. There is a bit more at play in today's business head, I guess. And one of those is around how you help them develop customer insights. So fintech, as we've already said, is really fast changing. Brands have to be innovative in this space, and you kind of have to actively show that you are leading the pack in best-in-class digital. So developing customer insights is another offering that today's business owner is hungry for. It's a case of data, but data they can actually do something with. And we've seen a lot of AI in this space, which has been lauded, I guess, as the most natural technology to be deployed in fintech. That's because in theory, financial services is inherently a sort of data-driven industry. Algorithms are deployed, obviously, to process data quickly and cheaply. We often see the media showcasing and highlighting case studies where the use of AI has helped customers interact in the financial and fintech space. And AI is increasingly being deployed to help these businesses and companies develop ever richer, deeper, more insight-driven views of their customers. So looking for ways to not only offer services, but to leverage the data that the merchant is gathering just by doing business is increasingly becoming a must-have expectation from SMEs and from business. And I've already touched on flexibility, but it sort of needs to be stressed that the end consumer is really demanding ultimate flexibility, and fintech providers are having to respond to that demand. We've seen this very clearly in the most recent couple of years with the stellar growth of the so-called point of sale lending, better known as buy now, pay later, or BNPL. This was largely driven by the younger generation who are now sort of shunning credit cards in favor of debit cards. And that's made it more difficult for companies to lend, which has arguably been the sort of bread and butter of financial services for a long time. Making lending available at the point of purchase, including the possibility of a loan on a single purchase transaction, has really driven a lot of that demand and uptake on flexibility. Klarna is one of the brands I mentioned earlier. They're kind of considered the BNPL leaders. They've actually taken it a step further. They've now launched a physical card to make borrowing even easier. So they're not confined anymore to just offering loans through their partnered e-commerce retailers. They can now extend that lending on a transaction basis with non-partners. Obviously, this kind of rapid uptake, particularly with the younger generational consumer, has raised kind of debt concerns. We've seen a report come out recently that's shown a third of the millennials who've used BNPL services have been charged late payment fees. Companies like Klarna are starting to kind of signal that they're going to make changes. There is a kind of expectation that there'll be some upcoming regulatory crackdowns happening. So how that kind of future of that area is going to unfold is still in a bit of question. But the point here is to really hammer home the point of flexibility being an intrinsic part of your approach to both value proposition, but predominantly to your CX as well. So what about the human behaviors that can help flip the switch, that can help lock in that loyalty for B2B in particular? Well, a B2B customer is just as messy a decision maker as a B2C customer. They're still going to be looking for information about a category's products and brands. They're still going to be trying to weigh up everything in order to make a decision. So what are the kind of messaging signals that we need to give for a B2B partner who's looking to consider a new fintech supplier and lock in that loyalty with them as an SME or a business merchant? Well, you need to be easy to do business with. Ultimately, I guess that's a standard business rule, so it's nothing surprising, but your own CX is just as vital to securing that B2B customer. So making sure that you're easy to find, assess, compare, and contact. Buying from your business should be as straightforward a process as possible, and really making sure that anything you're doing from a customer retention rate is focused on streamlining how you work with them and how you offer that customer convenience for them to obviously then focus on running their business and getting on with the job of running their business. And if you've been findable and you've been seamless to deal with, then to lock in that actual conversion, you've got to offer the merchant what they need, which again seems like a very obvious point. But the point is, are you giving them all the info they need to get to that conversion decision? Are you providing content to them that helps them make their decision? Do they need a demo session, for example? Now, post-COVID, is an in-person event something that they can come and attend, or perhaps hosting a virtual event that allows you to interact with customers and ultimately then build strong relationships that will last that much longer and lock in that value. And remember that humans look for trust signals and social validators in their decision-making. So do you have good reviews, referrals, testimonials? Are you actively looking to create loyal advocates and influencers from within your existing customer group? There's real power in B2B in showcasing your own social proof and ensuring a confident sale or switch decision. And often you'll see, for example, Klarna's Trustpilot rating there, that often gets showcased on the actual partner retailers because it's showing their consumers that they have validated who they're working with, and they're working with a trusted referred brand that they've brought into play. And don't forget to showcase your innovation. As we said, innovation is a big deal in this space. It is something that matters a lot. So are you set up to innovate for the first place? And are you showcasing that constant innovation to your market? You need to show how you are constantly improving your products and services, particularly for fintech brands that might have a chatbot function or might be actually, drawing in opinion and feedback polls and feedback. Are you actually listening and reviewing that feedback and responding and doing something about it so that your target audience can see that you are innovative and that you are responsive to the feedback and the industry changes that might be going on in your space? And ensure, obviously, that you have a good cadence of relevant high-touch communications. There are important decisions to encourage a switch behavior, and erring on the side of too few communication touch points can be a bit dangerous. Risky, complicated decision journeys, they typically benefit from having more high-touch communication options to really ensure you're connecting your brand and offering to the potential customer. So even if what you sell doesn't really require follow-ups, just being there for your customers with tips or information makes them stick around with your brand. So you can obviously use automated emails for follow-ups. You can use social media to share kind of handy industry-related insights. You can obviously do a phone call to follow up and see if they're using all the features of a fintech platform and make sure that they are locked in and seeing the value. And don't forget to be generous, offering up content or tips and tricks, ideas that merchants and businesses can refer back to. I'll show you a few examples in a moment that shows how some fintech brands are really embracing their content marketing as an opportunity to be generous and helpful. But the point is, creating valuable content that generates demand and benefits your customers and their businesses is a really excellent way to connect with them and make them more loyal to your brand. And you've got so many content types out there now that you've got more options, more than enough options for creating content that can resonate really well for your target audience. So do all that, and you should be able to trigger a customer to switch from a competitor brand or consider a switch from another brand. That's easy, right? Which is, yes, I'm sorry, it's another trick question. We know that different people make different choices. Some people make the same choices, but for different reasons. So understanding the behaviors that drive purchase decisions and how best to leverage your marketing and communication messaging to sort of nudge people along the journey to that decision moment is a bit of science mixed in with a bit of creativity. As Becky mentioned, we've got our own process that kind of helps us nudge and lead conversions through digital marketing. At Reflect, we use human behavior insight to really unpack and then tailor what marketing messaging is needed to get someone to that point of making a decision or considering a switch, for example. And you may have come across marketing teams or agencies speaking about personas in this space, and they can really help us kind of personalize and target our content and our marketing strategies. They help us kind of create meaningful marketing messaging. It helps us ensure we're going to communicate with an audience group in a way that will truly resonate. Human behavior psychology is really integrated into all aspects of our lives. It's the reason we've got our daily habits that we do, like brushing our teeth or sleeping on a certain side of the bed. But it's also a huge part of business activities, and really understanding online consumer behavior and marketing helps unlock those insights that can boost sales and boost engagement with customers. Customer insights that are informed by consumer psychology can really kind of make the difference. It helps us work out why one segment of an audience might prefer to shop online, but another segment really wants to buy in store and wants to tangibly touch what they're going to buy first. So it tells us why some consumer journeys are shorter compared to others, and it helps us to kind of plan a much more optimized digital presence and digital journey. We've got our own monkey line dog model. These are lenses that we use to determine our human behavior triggers, but there are some key behavior triggers to perhaps keep in mind if you're looking particularly at trying to encourage switch behaviors in your marketing campaigns coming up. One of these is understanding pain triggers. So anytime you're asking a user or a consumer to make a change, you're asking them to affect a behavioral change. And a main behavior driving the consideration to change in this space could be a pain trigger. So they may be unhappy with their current provider. They may be trying to solve a difficult business issue. Perhaps they're trying to scale their business and they need a supplier who's going to act more as a partner. Perhaps they've actually lost money because they've had a bad experience with a fintech partner. But understanding what that customer's pain trigger is will really likely help you tailor your messaging and calls to action so that you can upweight things about messaging around solutions, about being with them every step of the way, about being a safe pair of hands. Those are all messaging signals that could likely resonate with someone who's coming into a decision journey off of a pain trigger. One of the other things you could consider is playing on curiosity. You can play on the human love for the new product features, the latest innovation in the space, releasing a new product opening. Humans are naturally curious about new things. And if you can highlight your new offering, you may well be able to pull a consumer from somewhere else to yourself. You often see this, brands will use like tease type of messaging, watch this space coming soon type of things to encourage conversions in their marketing campaigns, particularly around launches or new product features. Just make sure you're obviously offering real value once you've played on that curiosity, because otherwise you'll lose them. You need to keep nudging them along the journey. And I've mentioned social proof already, but peer pressure is another thing to remember. And it's not just something we all left behind on the school ground. No one wants to feel like the odd man out. Humans are hardwired to seek out their tribe or their community. The need to feel part of something or to have the feeling of belonging is a deeply rooted human behavior, and feeling like you're not the only one that's been left off of a bandwagon can be an uncomfortable thing. So demonstrate how you're being used by well-known companies that can help a business owner make that consideration decision of switching in order to be part of an aspirational club. You can cultivate a real good community through your social marketing. You can look for key influencers to connect with for similar or ideal audience groups. These are all things that can be helpful in trying to convince a potential customer to make a switch and sort of join a new exciting community with your own offering, excuse me. And another human behavior to consider is that need for innovation, that need to adopt change, or the need to show off, even demonstrate status to others. You may well be trying to attract a senior consumer persona who thrives on raising the bar, on gaining knowledge, growing as a business, and they want to do the very best job they can. So showing this persona how to achieve, demonstrating things like results, like ROI, they could really help in tipping the scales in favor of a new partner or supplier. That's where value demonstration, testimonial case studies, all of those kind of things can really help encourage a switch decision from that consumer. So now that we've had a quick run through the types of behaviors that can help trigger a switch, we're going to take a look at some of the fintech players who are playing some great games with their digital marketing and what their strategies have been to attract and convert audience, and hopefully highlight some thought starters that you can consider for your own marketing plans. Content marketing. So although nowadays content is everywhere, everyone seems to be a writer, content marketing remains one of the most powerful and cost-effective fintech marketing tactics out there. A rightly implemented content marketing strategy will not only boost your organic traffic and SEO, which is obviously a must in today's digitally first world, but it will also establish you as a thought leader and an expert. And that helps further grow a consumer's confidence and gains trust. An example of a fintech who's kind of mastered this pretty well in terms of content marketing storytelling is actually a Canadian investment app startup called Wealthsimple. They worked out that the industry was pretty saturated with the kind of tips and tricks and 5 things you need to know type of content, and that people were looking for more in-depth real life examples and cases of things that worked and things that didn't. So Wealthsimple focused on producing pretty edgy editorials that didn't really promote their technology at all, but were very much focused on their target audience and advice. They had a money diary series where they were featuring interviews with personalities such as Anthony Bourdain, and they did one with Kevin Bacon, but they were also doing them with ordinary people. So the aim was to identify how individuals from different backgrounds tackle their personal finance problems in the broader context of their life, their career, their personal goals and aspirations. And that was sort of, A, it's generous with content, B, it was very insightful, and it really pulled people into the fact that Wealthsimple cared and was going to make sure they were in the right place and the right safe pair of hands. And if you're a B2B fintech that can build software or widgets, then offering free tools is another great B2B marketing tactic. Doesn't matter whether you're a business or an individual, we all love free tools. It's a great way to add value and acquire a loyal customer in return. You're offering something so they can do something they couldn't do before, and you're doing that for free. So the other bonus of offering free tools, if they're decent, is that it's a great way to gather backlinks to a website. As people link to your free tool and recommend it onto others, your website obviously gains authority and is more likely to appear on the first page of Google. So that's a win for everyone. Whilst it's mainly B2C fintechs that offer free tools, it doesn't mean there isn't an opportunity for the B2B fintech player to offer free tools as well. TrueLayer, they offer instant access to open banking and integration into next-gen payments and financial data. They offer a completely free demo and console. Square is a software solution for scheduling teams directly from point of sale terminals. They offer a completely free team management level for their SME entry-level customers. So it's that kind of freemium straight in at the door option. And then obviously they can upgrade if they need more bespoke, complicated systems, but offering that free tool is a very good entry point. And then whether your customer is a consumer or a business, it's still probably likely they've got email. So in fact, B2B consumers, as we know, they're more likely to be responsive to their emails and read them every day. Not only that, but a weekly or a bi-weekly newsletter is seen as a great way to keep in touch with them and add value at the same time. It just keeps your brand top of mind. You could obviously take it a step further and segment your email, so you can use a far more targeted approach for your segments. Customers tend to respond to that. They notice that it's more high quality. They appreciate the effort that's gone into it. There was a fintech marketing panel earlier this year, and Helen Owen, who's the VP of marketing at Tribe Payments, and Jonathan Nist, he was the chief marketing officer at Monaisi. They both spoke for the need for proper email marketing strategies, the kind of value of marketing automation to lead nurture, and just how important it is to really include personalization in the funnel. So really looking at how you can upweight and elevate your email marketing can really help drive a consumer's switch consideration. And then partnership marketing. So this is a broader concept of collaboration. Obviously, this is looking at licensing and co-branding and sponsorships and these kind of things. But ultimately, it's how can you collaborate with a third party that's associated with a segment of the market you're interested in order to perhaps elevate your value proposition. We see this a lot in fintech, the partnership and joint marketing tactics. They're often used at sort of pre-launch stage or to test the market and validate product concepts. But doing this kind of collaborative thing can open up a brand to audiences they might not have appealed to before. Ripple used marketing and partnership techniques to acquire new customers. What they had done was decide to focus their marketing efforts on collaborating with established finance and banking players, particularly for their settlement and cryptocurrency solutions. And they ended up actually partnering with US giant American Express, and it massively encouraged people to switch to them that wouldn't have considered working with them necessarily before, because they were now kind of backed and in bed with another very impressive brand. And then video content, this is probably unparalleled at the moment in terms of its marketing power. Video content really streamlines the sales funnel. It takes buyers less time to watch a video than to read a technical paper. YouTube and Facebook at the moment are still the most effective platforms for video marketing. And there's lots of studies that demonstrate that B2B video is still massively strong in this space. So as well as video content, you can obviously consider podcasts. They're becoming more popular in the B2B sphere. Podcasts allow you to collaborate with industry leaders and fintech enthusiasts. You'll engage with more people, diversify your audience. And again, it might be more useful for generating potential customers or trying to leverage that consideration to switch moment for those customers. And then gamification, that's simply the process of applying gameplay principles and game design elements in a non-game environment. In fintech, gamification is mostly seen in pre-launch campaigns because it's used to generate buzz, sort of awareness and new users. Monzo, they're one of the most successful retail challenger banks in the UK, and they introduced a waiting list along with a referral scheme when they launched their banking app. When users downloaded the app, they were added to a waiting list, and the only way they could move in the queue was to refer a friend to the product, which was massively a huge driver for them growing their subscription base and getting that across the line, which is very innovative use of their marketing. And experiential marketing, so that's another buzzword. It's essentially connecting your audience in a physical way, so providing them with some sort of unique physical experience with your brand. It's very commonly used in the consumer space. I was thinking of a popular ice cream brand that's done pop-up workshops recently, but we've also seen many service companies in both tech and finance who've applied this successfully. So Zettle, they're a Swedish fintech startup, or they were several years ago, and they used it to launch their product to the UK. They hosted a press briefing for local journalists, and it actually featured a physical pop-up market that sort of aimed to replicate the type of business environment where their platform could be used. So there were lots of small businesses trading at the event. They could take card payments through their smartphone or their tablet. They could provide instant feedback about Zettle's product to the media. It attracted sort of 70 journalists. The launch provided more than 80 articles in local press and media. They increased their sales by 425%. So, in addition, their website traffic saw a massive surge, and they were named as, the top app of the year when they did all of that. And it was all through the kickoff of an experiential in-person marketing event. And then community marketing, this is probably one of the most popular strategic marketing tactics in general. I mentioned this, when you look at the behavior triggers, particularly around the need for belonging, the need for social proof, the need to feel part of something, community marketing really comes into its own. It's the process of creating close interactions with your target audience and involving them in the development of your business. Many successful fintechs, including Revolut, Monzo, as I've mentioned, and Finimize, they've taken advantage of this, and they've really focused their efforts on building strong brand communities that drive product development, client retention, growth. They've asked customers to name future products, to provide feedback. They've opened beta groups. They've had live Q&A sessions. They've created community meetups. Monzo, as another example, again, they actually had to look for a new name after the trademark Mondo was challenged by another company. So they actually contacted their subscribers, put the word out on social media and in the press, and 48 hours later, they hit like over 12,000 submissions and obviously wound up with the name Monzo. And that was sort of really leveraging and leaning into that community loyal space that they've been able to retain since then. And as the market continues to grow, it's becoming increasingly difficult for companies to differentiate and really stand out. More and more fintechs are starting to look and feel the same. You'll often see they all kind of fall into the minimalist design, flat illustrations, pastel colors. That's kind of become the new uniform. So really thinking outside the box and being bold with branding can be more important than ever in trying to encourage a switch consideration. And one fintech that did this really well was N26. They had a very rather unconventional no bullshit campaign. They were obviously targeting the millennial customer segment. It was aiming to connect with the audience by adopting a far more human and kind of direct tone of voice and language. It will have put some people off, of course. Some might find it rather controversial, but the campaign certainly did attract the public and industry attention, and it sort of positioned them really well as a true fintech disruptor. So they were naturally going to appeal to those customers that were considering wanting to be part of that status, that innovation, that drive for change, behavior persona that I mentioned earlier. So hopefully that's given you some thoughts on how you could bring video content or gamification or community marketing into fintech marketing strategies. Winning the game of loyalty in fintech and encouraging switch behaviors in consumers, it clearly takes effort. It takes smart strategies, it takes consistent strategy. So as I wrap up, I'll leave you with perhaps some of the key things to really start sweating over and where you should be really kind of focusing attention if you are trying to drive switch behavior in this space. The one is CX. It does matter a lot. Ensuring your entire user journey to your ideal customer and to their end customer is incredibly important. So really spending time reviewing this, investing in A/B testing, looking at your key conversion pathways in your journey, really making sure that CX is a key element in your ongoing strategies is vital. And then spend time understanding your ideal customer. I touched very briefly on a few personas that might be in this space, but really work out what sort of persona are you speaking to? Are they in that consideration phase due to a pain or trigger point? Are they likely to be needing social proof in order to feel comfortable in their decision-making? Have you looked into how to moderate your messaging and your calls to action so that you can appeal to those different personas and audience behaviors in order to really try and nudge them towards that switch consideration and switch behavior and lock in that loyalty? And make sure your strategy is meeting your customer where they are at the right time, in the right channel, with the right message. As we've touched on, humans are very messy decision makers, and the work for today's marketers is to actually do that work and be there for them throughout every stage of their rather squiggly, wiggly decision-making journey. So making sure you understand your top of funnel, how do you attract, how are you giving them all of the content they need to compare and contrast? Are you elevating testimonials and case studies to give them that social proof? And do you have the nice care and consideration and the follow-up that will lead them through to the point of being confident and capable enough to make a switch behavior in the fintech space as a result of your marketing? And if we do all of that, you should hopefully win the game in the fintech loyalty space. That's me. I can't at the moment see the questions or anything like that. So if there are any, I'm more than happy to field any questions.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Zoe. And at the moment, no one's popped any questions in, but now is the time if anyone's got questions to either come off of mute or pop their questions in. I guess I'll just start us off with, obviously there was so much in there and it was brilliant. It's just, where do you start? So if people are sitting here like, what's the most important thing to do first? Is it personas? Is it to make sure they understand their audience? Is it to just start doing things in the channels? Where should people start?
Yeah, there's two answers to that, I guess. One is start doing something, because the starting with something allows you to immediately start assessing what's working, what's not working. But just starting without knowing what your purpose is and who you're trying to talk to can be a bit like firing in the dark. So I would always encourage people to try and start at least with some base persona understanding of really knowing what is likely to be driving consumers to consider your fintech platform. It comes back to some of the basics of marketing 101, is knowing what your USP is, assessing what the current sort of push and pull factors might be driving people to choose you or not choose you, and actually doing that work to look at how do you then adapt and start trialing and testing new messaging that is more aligned with those personas. I'd also say one of the first places to look, as I mentioned, CX is so important. If you think you've got friction anywhere in your own website journey, for example, that really needs looking at. If people are battling to work out, their features or the price points, or they can't get in touch with you very easily, any elements of CX friction would also be a very early doors, something to assess and get on top of, I'd reckon.
Amazing. And I guess for some fintech businesses, the gestation period of first from a lead or from first touch point with an agency to being able to to a fintech business before being able to actually make the switch could be quite a long time, couldn't it? Sometimes if it's really fundamental to the business and it's a big change. So is that about then the CRM strategy to kind of keep them engaged?
Yeah. To me, that would come down to the two biggest sort of weapons in the arsenal, I guess, would be your content marketing and your CRM. So like I said, making switch decisions is often painful. It's risky. People might be nervous. They could be putting a big sort of chunk of their business at risk by switching providers. They don't want downtime. They don't want to be at risk for anything. So making sure the content that's available to them allows them to really validate that this is a safe decision. So case studies, testimonials, social proof, all of that leveraging in your outbound content can be really vital. And of course, leaning in your CRM, lead nurturing. If they've got questions, are they able to get in touch with you? Do they need a demo? Are they able to book a demo? Are they able to kind of look at a free tool, or are they able to engage in some way? Because essentially in this space, a switch behavior is going to come down to, do they believe you? Do they trust you? Are you credible enough for me to make that difficult, uncomfortable decision? And if you can put your content and your outbound comms into the right space to answer those three main fears, then hopefully you're doing the job, and they can make that decision quicker, and get to the switch point a lot faster.
Makes sense. Does anyone else have any other questions? We haven't had any in the chat, but you're very welcome to come off mute and talk to us. I'll let Chantel move forward then. Did you have a question? No, just moving. Okay, cool. Well, in that case, what we'll do is we'll start to wrap up. But honestly, that was such a brilliant session, Zoe, and really, I learned a lot, and it's interesting to see what's going on in the space as well, to get that context as well. So we've got a survey that Chantel's just going to pop into the chat. We will email you this as well, but we'd love to get you to fill it in. So we're just going to put on some lovely lift music, give you an opportunity to quickly fill in the survey. If you can hang around and do that for us now. It's really important to us that we keep making these events what the audience wants to see, so your feedback is vital. And just another thank you to Chantel for all her organising and the lovely brunch boxes. So we'll pop the lift music on now. Feel free to fill in the survey. We'd love to hear from you, and enjoy the rest of your day as you finished with the survey.